Okay, what's going on? It's gonna be our first 420. I don't think necessarily because, like, you know what I'm saying. I've had the 420 going on in in other videos, but this is gonna be like the first one where it's listed as that because I think this is crazy. It's one of the ones we're gonna have to definitely put some tree to.
In 1970,
We're talking about they tortured her for 6 hours in a failed social experiment. Next Files. This is supposed to be like a spin on
1974,
Netflix.
inside a small art gallery in Naples, Italy, a woman stood completely still for 6 hours, letting a crowd do whatever they wanted with her. Next to her stood a table. On it, there were 72 simple objects. Some were comforting, like a rose, a feather, some perfume, but others were quite the opposite. These included things like a knife, scissors, a gun, and a bullet. There were no instructions for the audience, except one. They all had 6 hours to use the objects on her as they pleased. What happened next revealed one of the most shocking aspects of our human nature that most of us would rather not believe. This was Rhythm Zero, an art performance that nearly ended in murder. Many people thought Marina Abramovic was deranged. As a young woman, she often pushed the boundaries of physical and psychological endurance, and she tested the limits of human experience through sacrifice, vulnerability, and pain. In what was then Yugoslavia, she was born in 1946 to parents who were decorated Communist Party officials. Naturally, her childhood was strict, cold, and highly disciplined, shaping her in a secularist, materialist view. But, on the other hand, her grandmother was devoutly Serbian Orthodox, instilling Marina with spiritual values as well. It was from this contradiction that came an obsession, the spiritual nature of suffering. Between 1973 and 1974, Marina began a series of performance pieces that she called rhythms. Each piece tested her body, her mind, and her threshold for pain. In Rhythm 2, she took pills prescribed to psychotic patients to simulate a breakdown. In Rhythm 5, she lay inside a burning star until she lost consciousness from smoke inhalation. In Rhythm 10, she stabbed between her fingers with a knife until she drew blood.
What, nigga? I know y'all remember when I was like, I have on my fingers. The knife goes chop, chop, chop. For a second, I thought. So,
But the final piece of the series would be the most extreme. It would essentially reverse the formula. This time, the pain wouldn't come from within. It would come from people on the outside. She would become the passive object, and the audience would become active in imposing pain. Here, she would discover just how far they were willing to go. At precisely 8 p.m., Marina Abramovic stood in the middle of the gallery. She was dressed plainly. She did not speak. She did not move.
8 p.m. was a perfect time to let it go on for 6 hours. It's a gremlin.
She did not even
This is
make
the
eye
gremlin
contact.
time.
But in her own words, she said, "I am the object. During this time, I take full responsibility." For the first 2 hours, the crowd was hesitant. Viewers, unsure whether this was performance or provocation, circled her cautiously. Some placed a rose in her hand. Another kissed her cheek. A few moved her posture gently, shifting her like a mannequin. But, eventually, things escalated. By the third hour, someone had cut off her shirt with a razor. Others followed, and soon her clothes were in tatters. Someone even cut her neck deeply enough to draw blood. Then they proceeded to drink it. Various people touched her inappropriately. Thorns from the rose were pressed into her stomach. But it didn't stop there. A man picked up the gun from the
Bro, I don't remember the timeline of this, but if something like this happened in 2025, bro, how hurt people are, they'll go up there and whip her, beat her confidently. If you could put some people in the room, and the only thing that's gonna stop them in this day and age is like social, like internet guilt, not social guilt, internet guilt. That if it was like streamed and their faces were on it. This is some low key shit. And you're telling a bunch of people they can go out and do whatever to a woman. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie.
Table and loaded it with a bullet. He then placed the weapon in Marina's hand, positioned it at her head, and wrapped her own finger around the trigger, slowly putting more and more pressure. Still, she didn't flinch, as that would contradict the whole point of the performance. Meanwhile, a fight had broken out between different factions of the audience, as some tried to wrestle the gun away. They essentially divided themselves in two groups, those that didn't want to harm Marina, and those that did.
Out of my way, pigeons. I get Uber credits back on my rides because I
She
am a
definitely
student.
did this with
We
the
do
lines.
too.
She went in there ready.
We do too.
Not wanting to, but she was ready. Crazy. She was so ready to get about it.
I want you to want me.
As CIO, I brought us from Jira to the entire Atlassian platform. Our PR department.
This sudden polarization wasn't random. It was the result of a powerful psychological shift taking place inside the room, a live demonstration of de-individuation. The performance quite literally paralleled infamous experiments like the Stanford Prison Experiment and Milgram's Obedience Study. In those experiments, ordinary people who were given roles and instructions committed acts that they never thought themselves capable of. In the realm of psychology, it's well known that while in groups, individuals can lose their sense of self-awareness. Accountability dissolves, empathy fades. Surrounded by others, your identity merges into a collective, one capable of cruelty under the right conditions. Here, you don't feel guilty for your actions, because now, your actions are no longer yours alone. With no clear rules, no punishment, and no consequences in Rhythm Zero, the audience had defaulted to violence because it became normalized as time passed. Psychologists call this informational social influence. This is where, in ambiguous situations, people look to others to determine the correct behavior and simply follow. The real horror of Rhythm Zero, though, wasn't that people committed violence. It was how easily they slipped into it. There was no explicit reward, nor were there any conditions, only an opportunity. After 6 hours, when Marina simply took a step forward, literally reclaiming her personhood, the crowd suddenly fled. It was as though a spell had been broken, and with it came a flood of recognition. The audience could no longer pretend. They were no longer interacting with just an object. After the audience had touched...
And it's crazy because it's like she never was, though. That's like the social experiment. She never was. So anybody who tripped out and they did something that was just an admission of guilt.
cut her, stripped her, they simply ran away, unable to face what they'd done.
Exactly.
Each one of them had suddenly regained their sense of individuality, and, when faced with the prospect of a confrontation, chose to escape. Later, Marina reflected on this chilling moment, saying, "If you leave it up to the audience, they can kill you." It's worth noting.
You know what? That's like such a powerful thing. Because it's like these people who get up on these platforms and they do everything to cater to their audience, it'll end up being like the death of you. A prime example of that is that girl, that white girl who was blackfacing and saying the N word with the ER. That white girl who was doing all that, how she just got demonetized. And now she's trying to say she's gonna drift away from it because they don't want to hear the truth. No, you're drifting away from it because that's not you. You don't want to stand on that business. And now that your audience has dragged you to the point where now you're not gonna make money off of it and be a grifter, now you're sad. Now you're hurt. Now you're feeling stupid. And it's just like that's on you because you wanted to cater to the so many people. You wanted them to feel good about racism because you proudly blackface. Now that's your legacy you have to live with. You're just goofy. just goofy. And that'll happen to a bunch of people if you spend too much time worrying about what like another person is thinking. It's like it can like the audience can kill you, and even in the sense that it's like, how do I put this, that it's like even in the sense that like you're always so worried about doing things so perfectly. You want the song to look like this when you drop it. You want your video to look like this. You want the quality to be like this. You want to be able to edit it properly, whatever. Da, da, da. You want it to all be so perfect that it's killing you from even chasing your dream. It's killing your ambitions and your dreams because you ain't even doing nothing because you're thinking about doing everything for the audience so perfect. So the same way you can cater to the audience, like by being obsessed with just doing whatever they want, trying to be perfect for them, is the same way. It'll kill you, nigga.
Marina Abramovic wasn't the first to test the morality of a crowd. A decade earlier, in 1964, Yoko Ono did a similar performance, one that was called Cut Piece. She had walked onto a stage in Kyoto, Japan, dressed modestly. She said nothing. She simply knelt down, placed a pair of scissors in front of her, and waited. One by one, people began to cut away pieces of her clothing. They snipped just the edges, small, polite cuts. But as time passed, their hesitation faded. The cuts grew deeper and more unhinged. Strangers began cutting away parts of her bra, her skirt, until eventually there was nearly nothing left to remove. Throughout all of this, Yoko didn't protest once. And in that silence, there was a kind of accusation. Much like Rhythm Zero, Cut Piece wasn't about a spectacle. It was about exposing human nature. Both Yoko and Marina placed their bodies into the hands of the audience, and both asked, "What would you do if no one stopped you?" Unsurprisingly, both received the same response.
Hey, whatever woman could be brave enough to do that in 2025, I'm telling you, the world will stop to see it if it's live streamed, especially too. If you let a bunch of dudes do something to you and they get to all be masked up so they can hide their identity, I'm telling you, it's gonna get scary. You survive it though? Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie, it's gonna be crazy.
Marina
Even though some people will say this is some cloud shit, you'll be doing a big service to the world. These two women were ahead of their time. Way too ahead of their time. Now they might not even let you get away with trying to do something like this to expose human nature.
Abramovic's case was personally a very hard read. Not because of the physical violence, but because it shows just how thin the line is between empathy and apathy. What's terrifying isn't just that people inflicted harm, it's how easily they convinced themselves it was acceptable. And these same people could be people we're around every day. Even worse, it could be our own selves.
And like a super deep thought to take out of this video is like, these women put their bodies on the line, and men who were in these situations, women, who knows, were told it was acceptable, that they're asking for it, so it's okay. That's why at first they start off not doing too much, but as they keep getting comfortable and realize like, oh, okay, they get further and further away from the light and they become dark. And that just shows that how in this day and age it's super crazy, the bigotry of men, because men will allow themselves to think, oh, because you XYZ, you deserve XYZ in their head to what they think is acceptable. If you walk outside as a woman in fishnet pants, like literally fishnet, just straight fishnet, you just come out literally wanting to look lustful, fishnet, and a dude slaps your ass, a ton of men are literally gonna say, like, what did you expect? When in reality, that ain't right, no matter what. Because as men, if we literally all walked outside naked for whatever reason that could be, we would not be cool with anybody just slapping our ass. So it's like a woman walking out completely naked does not mean anything should happen to her. Now, when you're explaining to women why, yes, you should still not do that because in the real world, that's what people do, and that's the real nastiness and wickedness of human nature. That's a completely different thing. You know what I'm saying? But it just shows the control and the misogyny and the bigotry and the brainwashing that happens. Like a lot of men don't understand that the way that we're taught to think, even like there's a lot of men who probably are good dudes, just still have bigot ways of thinking. Being a bigot, being very unempathetic and having low sympathy and not being humble enough to be grounded and understanding like humans a little bit more will draw you away from so much beauty and at the same time that is in the world. Cause you know what I'm saying? You have to understand the darkness to appreciate the light. So it's wicked though. It is wicked. It is wicked. I appreciate y'all for watching this video. This one was a banger. Like, subscribe, share it with somebody that you think. Share it with a woman if you think she would be liberal enough to pull this one off. She had enough conviction in her liberalism to pull this one off.